Well, it appears I'm starting to YouTube.
Hi, I'm Steve, and I've got an interesting story to tell you. I recently moved back to Canada after living and working abroad for many years, primarily in Morocco. But this is where I live now. It's beautiful. And despite all the things I've done and all the other places I've been, it's hard for me to imagine ever having lived anywhere else. My life has changed so radically. I think of myself primarily as a maker of things. And for most of my life, that's meant making music and records. I spent years touring all over the world as a musician and band leader, and eventually moved into the production end of things, and did some really cool projects and made some really amazing music with some amazing talented people in many different genres and in many different capacities. But today, right now, I'm not doing a lot of music. I spend the vast majority of my time hunting, fishing, foraging, growing vegetables in my organic gardens, and making food. Specifically, wild food, and organic food, and recipes, and photos and videos about all those things.
That little mushroom there is a work of art.
Look at that.
But hold on, we're going to pump the brakes right there. Unless you're coming over from my Instagram, you don't know the first thing about me other than that little clip that I just played you there. A lot has changed since my touring and record making days. Today I am a full-time outdoors guy, and I wear a lot of different hats. We might as well start out with this one, right? Blank canvas, no logo, outdoor education. I spend a lot of time teaching folks about the living world around them. I teach classes on wild mushroom identification, medicinal mushrooms, plants, forest ecology, you name it, all outdoors related, and I give these classes all over Ontario, and even right here on my property in Haliburton, Ontario. So that's hat number one, outdoor educator, and a lot of the stuff that I teach about is wild mushrooms. I am obsessed with them. I'm a massive mushroom nerd, and I've become even more obsessed with helping people learn how to forage for wild mushrooms safely and reliably. Now, I don't have a cutesy little mushroom hat to wear for this stupid little segment, but I do have this little Suillus mushroom. I believe this to be Suillus weaveri. I didn't even really look at it that close, but this is going to have to do. Hat number two is guiding. I've got a small outfitting business based out of Haliburton, Ontario again, primarily focused on guided fishing, so I spend a lot of time out on the water with clients fishing. And I've been doing that literally since I was a kid. My family's business was a hunting and fishing camp. I'm just a lifelong fisherman. In fact, the very first picture of me that I'm aware of is my dad holding the 4-pound bass in one arm and holding me in the other. And I just love eating fish. And fish is one of the most delicious and abundant food sources for me right here in central Ontario. And I can kind of go out, get them at will. And I spend a lot of time chasing them too. Now, I'm also a professional outdoors writer. I write for Outdoor Canada magazine and a bunch of other publications about hunting and fishing and foraging and sustainable living. And I love the written word. I actually spend a lot of time writing. I'm actually working on a book, but we'll talk a lot more about that later. It's nowhere near done. But anyway, long story short is that I spend a lot of time writing about the outdoors too. And I make a lot of content about those exact same subjects on my Instagram, Stevie Funfer, STEVIE_FUNFUR on Instagram. If you're interested, pop over there. And that's mostly short form content about hunting, fishing, foraging, wild foods, cooking, and recipes. But what I hope to do is do all those same subjects and that same kind of content, just a lot deeper and better here on YouTube. Now, knowing that, you might already guessed, I'm an avid hunter. I spend a lot of time filling my freezer, and I'll tell you why. I'm one of those guys that believes really strongly in voting with my wallet, and I don't want to support those big industrial systems and corporations. I don't want to support factory farming. I'm voting with my wallet to fill my freezer every single year with meat that I am responsible for, that I feel good about. And if you're a hunter, you already know it takes an inordinate amount of time and effort to fill that freezer every year, but it's totally worth it. And now that you've learned all that, you might be even more surprised to learn that I still do 3 veggie days per week for health reasons. Yes, I'm talking about 3, if not 4 entire days out of my week where I don't consume meat at all, even though I put a ton of time and effort into obtaining it. But that's a whole separate topic for a different video sometime in the future. And my stupid little tomato fell off my hat. I'm sorry, I don't have a little gardening hat to show you. But I want you to know that I grow well over 1,000 pounds of organic food on this property every single year. And there's going to be a ton of gardening content on this channel as well. I love gardening. I love growing food. And I spend a ton of time doing that as well. So I wear a lot of hats. This thing right here isn't even a hat, but watch me, I'll wear it. I'll wear the shit out of it. Since I'm starting an outdoors YouTube channel, I think I gotta get a hat like this, you know, one of these bad boys, and I gotta take a lot of shots of myself looking off to the side, wistfully thinking about important outdoors things, I guess. I don't know what those guys think about. Not throwing any shade at any of the guys who are making content where it's just like, you know, the big, beautiful outdoors, etc. I watch a lot of that kind of stuff. I love that kind of stuff. But on this channel here, I'm going to show you all the power and beauty and majesty of nature in the exact way that I get to live it every single day. But I also want to be super mega real with you and let you know about what goes on behind the scenes and what it really takes to live this way. And speaking of super realness, I also want to share with you a little bit about my own personal health story. I was very sick for a long time, and it's probably the reason that I ended up in this forest in the first place. So I kind of kept this a secret for a long time, and I'm not really sure why. I think it has something to do with the weird thing in our culture with dudes specifically where we don't want to admit that we're sick, but I was sick for a long time. I've got one of those crappy modern autoimmune diseases. It's called psoriatic arthritis. It's kind of like the worst cousin of rheumatoid arthritis, if you've ever heard of that. It's a polyarthritic condition, affects the joints primarily, coupled with a really crappy skin condition. And I suffered from that for many, many years before moving back to Canada, cleaning up my diet and my lifestyle and getting better. I was put on a harsh chemical chemotherapy drug called methotrexate. Now, for a lot of people, that's a great drug, and I was taking it in a much lower dose than a chemotherapy patient would be taking it, but nonetheless, I didn't react to it well. I was literally sick every time I took those pills for years, and the side effects from those damn chemical drugs were much, much worse than the damn disease itself at times. I'll spare you most of the gory details about the disease itself, but it was awful. I had scales on my hand, like the skin condition from this thing, made my skin crack down to the flesh. They were bleeding all the time. It was painful just to swim or take a shower. And the drugs themselves, that methotrexate, it made me allergic to the sun. At the time I was living in Africa, allergic to the sun. So hoodie every single day in 40-degree weather or my skin would break out in boils and I was just sore all the time. This disease is in my spine. It's in all my joints. And at a certain point, I was just popping anti-inflammatory pills and painkillers like a freaking junkie to get out of bed. Most days I literally couldn't even pick up a coffee cup. Anyway, fast forward to today, where I quit those harsh drugs cold turkey, turned to living a healthy outdoors lifestyle, only eating delicious homegrown organic food from my gardens and that are wild harvested from the forest and lakes all around me. And I'm real happy to tell you that it's been going on almost 5 years that I am symptom-free from this disease that doctors all over the world told me didn't have a cure. Just getting outside, living a healthy outdoor lifestyle, and cleaning up my diet were the two things doctors never told me. And hey, maybe that disease is still inside me somewhere, but if you don't have any symptoms, who cares? And the whole idea of taking a stab at curing myself or healing myself came from one light bulb moment. I was scrolling around on the internet, researching my own condition, trying to figure out what the hell to do because those pills weren't doing me any good at all. I was still on them at the time. And I ran into this quote from Hippocrates. He's the ancient forefather of modern medicine. And I'm sure you're familiar with this quote. It was, "Let food be thy medicine." And it was literally just like a ding, like a freaking light bulb went off in my head. Today, the vast majority of the food that I consume comes right off this property, and it takes a ton of work to obtain it, to grow it, to go and hunt it, to pull it out of the lake, or to forage for it. And I think all of that effort is actually part of the remedy.
Because of where I live now, I can forage for delicious wild food.
So that's how you identify a fiddlehead.
And wild medicine from plants and mushrooms.
I'm harvesting chaga.
And I can grow medicine and make medicine. I can cultivate my own organic produce and make my own fresh, delicious, healthy products. I can take up hunting and get really back into fishing and provide myself with organic, free-range, ethically harvested, non-industrial meat. and I want to start sharing some of the things I've learned.
You know, organic gardening is not that different from hunting, fishing, foraging, mushroom hunting, etc. in that it's all about eating fresh, delicious food when it's available in season at the peak of its nutritional value. And when it's at its absolute tastiest.
And the reward I got for dropping right off the map and all the blood, sweat, and tears it takes to live this way has been some kind of version of living my best life. I feel like I'm 18 again, and all this extra energy has only exacerbated my lifelong problem of being a bit of a jackass, granted, but in all seriousness, it's been an incredible transformation. I spent a lot less time at fancy industry parties or with the spotlight on me, and I certainly drink a lot less champagne.
Doesn't even care.
But I'll be honest with you.
What do you think, buddy? She knows you. She doesn't even care.
I can't complain about the neighbors.
So as you saw in some of those clips that I played you off the hop of this intro video, I was a real busy professional dude for most of my adult life. And I lost my connection to these forests where I grew up. And it wasn't until I lost that connection that I realized how important it really is. And that's one of the main things I want to do with this channel, is to help you connect to nature in the way that I've been so lucky to do in these last few years. And I'm not just talking about a whole bunch of pretty pictures of nature and rivers and trees and, you know, shots of me sawing logs looking like a freaking stud and all that, okay? All of that is totally fine. The cottagecore and those channels that show you just the beautiful side of outdoor living and self-reliance and sustainability. But I want to show you the blood, sweat, and tears. I want to show you what it really takes to live this way and even just get on that path towards sustainability and self-reliance, because it's a lot. Life up here in this forest is, of course, very beautiful, but you got to know that it's a lot of elbow grease too, and I want to show you all that. I'm not hiding any of the nitty-gritty from you.
I'm way far out into the season. It's already minus 10. It was minus 13 this morning when I went out, but I got rewarded with a very nice buck. Again, not a trophy, don't care, but look at that body, man. That's my year's worth of red meat, and that's all I need. That's beautiful.
And further, I think you're starting to get an idea of the kind of content that I want to be producing for this YouTube channel, all based on living a healthy outdoors lifestyle. I'm talking about sustainability, stewardship, hunting, fishing, foraging, organic gardening, and food and recipes based on all of that stuff, and a whole bunch of other interesting subjects. And I'd like you to try and think of all those interesting subjects as a way of you and I exploring nature and our connection to it together.
And all we had to do was step back and restart. And
How many mushrooms you got in there? I know they're good. I know they are.
breathe out.
But you can't stash them in my garage, man. That's my tape drawer.
And breathe in. And breathe out. And breathe in.
Give it a shot. Subscribe. I want to show you some things.